Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's diet session for the ASIS Virtual Study session. My name is Bryan Roberts, CPP, CMC, and plenty other things. I will be your facilitator for today. Before we start and before we introduce today's topic, I would appreciate it if we can put on our video so we can have, or if you have a picture to put on your status, so we can have an appreciation for the people who are on today, so we can see ourselves and also introduce ourselves briefly. So I'll call your name and just a brief introduction of yourself and the particular course we intend to certify for. So I'm putting on my own video now, so we can see my friends. Just 1 second.
Joe, where is it?
Okay, good morning. I would like to start with Mr. Usman. Please, can you put on your video so we can see yourself? Then a brief introduction about yourself, please. Usman.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Usman.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, my location is a little bit dark. You know, in Maiduguri, I have been without light for quite some time, so sorry for that. The visibility seems to be very poor. My name is Osman Sani Abdullahi. I'm a humanitarian security professional based in the Northeast, to be precise, in Maiduguri, the state capital of Borno State. Thank you.
Thank you, Usman. Which course are you writing?
Come again?
Which course do you intend to sit for? Which certification exam?
CPP.
CPP.
CPP. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Usman. And Mr. Shegun Osorinde.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
Just
sir.
like you said, my name is Matthew Shegun Osorinde. I'm in the Security Services Department of Central Bank. I am sitting for CPP.
CPP too.
Good Hello.
Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Yeah, CPP. Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, then. Mr. Daniel, please.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I am Daniel Elias Lawrence with the State Security Service, currently Commander Presidential Bodyguards, Presidential Strike Force, please.
Thank you, sir. Which course
I
are
want to sit for the CPP.
Okay, we have full CPP house. Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
The CPP.
CPP, no problem, sir. Mr. Adon, please.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good morning, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Adi Kosterige. I'm a special agent to the PFSO. I'm applying for a CPP.
Good morning. Mr. Ruben, please. Hello, Mr. Ruben. Mr. Ruben, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Ruben Odum. I currently work for USAID here in Nigeria, security specialist, and I intend to write the CPP exam shortly.
Thank you very much, sir. So for those of us that have a low bandwidth, at this time we can put off our videos so we can have at least an optimal connection. We've seen our faces, we've seen ourselves, and I'm happy that everybody here is preparing for the CPP. So it seems those for the CPP are the more serious ones, if I'm permitted to say so. So thank you for your time this morning. We'll be discussing the eligibility requirements for the CPP exam, the examination types, and key points in preparing for the certification. As we all know, the CPP is the gold standard certification for security in the world. It's always referred to as a board certified management certification for security. And sorry about that. We are sanitizing our area at the moment. So just bear with the background noise if you're hearing any. I'm going to share my screen. Just 1 second, please. Okay. Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, the CPP, Certified Protection Professional, is considered the gold standard for security management professionals. This certification validates your knowledge in all areas of security management, and the eligibility requirements include 5 to 7 years of security experience and 3 years in a responsible charge of a security function. This was recently reviewed because before now, it was 9 years experience in security with and 5 years experience in responsible charge of security function with a degree. But they have been reviewed to allow more people get this particular certification, as people have complained over time that it's been an issue for them to meet the standards. They also brought out the Associate Protection Professional APP for those who want to get the CPP quickly but have not met the appropriate requirement in a number of years of security experience. So if you pass the APP examination, you're eligible to also write the CPP immediately. Since we are all here are going for the CPP exam, let's go straight into how we can sit for this exam. Sorry. Applying for the certification. To apply for the CPP exam or any of the ASIS certifications, you will need your resume and an official copy of your university transcript if applicable. Currently, they do not ask for the university transcript anymore, but you need to send an official copy of your resume. You need to have references who can verify your work experience and pay for the exam fees. The exam fees for ASIS members is $335. For non-members, it's $485. And to retake the exam, that if you fail the exam and you need to, or you don't meet up the cutoff points, which is 650 points over 800, to retake the exam, you pay $225. These are just basic information, but I think we should know about these ones. The next one we'll look at is certification handbook. Okay, let's go. Yes. Sorry. Now, when you're ready to write your exams, you first need to schedule your exam and decide how you want to take the exam. Before now, there was only one way to take the SIS exam, and that was by going to a prometric test center to write the exam. Earlier on, we had the option of pen on paper, but now the pen on paper option has been phased out, and you're expected to write the exam by CBT, that's computer-based testing. Due to the effects of COVID-19, a new mode of exam taking was brought out, and that is the remote proctoring option. I wrote my exam with this particular mode, remote proctoring option. So when you're ready to write your exam, you go to the Prometric website, and all these links will be sent to you on the group later on. You go to the Prometric website and you schedule a time to take your exam. In taking the exam, you have to go with your authorization test letter that you will get from ASIS when you've been authorized to write the exam after you've paid, and also with 2 valid identifications, preferably your international passport and your driving license. It is very important to remember that particular part, because without those identifications, you will not be allowed to take the exam. And the exam is normally for 3 hours or 4 hours to be more precise, and there are no breaks except your center allows it. That is for those that write in a Prometric center. For those that want to go through remote proctoring, it's a bit tricky because that process is quite tedious on its own. For remote proctoring, you need to have a laptop or desktop that's connected to an internet. You need to have a webcam that will be used to monitor you during the exam. You need to be in a quiet place without distractions and a well-lit place. You also need to have an area that is clear of clutter. When I mean clear of clutter, they don't want to see documents on your table. They don't want to see books around you, just a clear table. And after you've done all this, you'll need to go through a PC test to confirm that the particular system you're using meets the criteria for the exam. Now that means you need to check, first of all, if the screen ratio is above 800 by 600. Check if your internet speed upload is above 3 megabytes per second and download 2 megabytes per second. Once that has been settled, you'll be asked to take your system or the web camera to scan the whole room 360 by the remote proctor who will be viewing you. If they find anything that goes against their policies, your exam will be canceled on the spot. But you'll be allowed twice to put in for another schedule. So it's better you ensure that from the beginning, those particular areas are sorted out. I think I have that document here. 1 second, please. Here it is. Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, please.
Yes, I can see from you.
So all these documents and links will be shared with you after now. Mr. Danny, you wanted to say something? Daniel, your hands are raised.
Sorry, sorry. I wanted to respond that we're seeing your screen.
Okay, thank you. So this is the self-proctor user guide that shows you what you would need to be ready if you decide to take this particular path to take your examination. It's about 20 pages. So I wouldn't want to bore you, but you can see the requirements on the screen. Screen resolution is 1024 by 768. Operating system, Windows 7 or higher, or Mac OS 10.13 or higher. You need to have working speakers and microphone required. You can use a wired headphone and microphone too. A current version of Google Chrome. There have been complaints that when you use Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge, they have some bugs. So they advise you to use Google Chrome. The internet connection speed should be higher than 0.5 megabytes per second or greater. But from my own experience, the best speed you should be looking at is a minimum of 3 megabytes per second. Because with 0.5, by the time your Proton logs in, the bandwidth drops a little. And unlike the network systems that we have in Nigeria, theirs is stable. If you have 2 Mbps, it's dedicated. But here, if you're using something like MTN or Glo or local subscribers, we don't have a dedicated channel or bandwidth for our network, except you're subscribed to one of those broadband plans that are out there now. So I would advise you look for something above at least 3 or 2 megabytes per second to do that. Your Wi-Fi signal must be strong. This is the system check I told you about. You go for a system readiness check where they will force you, it's by force, to download the app, and they will run through your system to check if you meet all the requirements. If you don't meet even one of the requirements, you will not be allowed to take the exam on remote proctoring. Another aspect is once you've, it's on the ID capture, once you've logged in, what they do is they block out your whole screen. So where you see you have the minimize button and close button, you don't have that once you're in the exam environment. It's a security feature for them in monitoring you, so you'll be able to open between pages or browsers to check for information. Once you try to come out from that system, the whole exam is closed immediately and you're logged off. That is what they do. From my own experience, I would say I prefer taking it from remote proctoring part because you're on your own, you're more focused, and you have control over yourself. But if you're not comfortable or used to computer-based tests, or it's the first time you're writing any computer-based exam, I would advise you go to a Prometric center and experience it first before you try it on your own. That's where you'll be used to the ambience and that apprehension when you're taking the exam. So this is it for eligibility requirements and exam types. Now we need to delve into the virtual training program itself. Like Mr. Daniel said earlier on, I was I'm the first person who has used particular virtual training and passed my CPP. In fact, I did it under 1 week. Yes, I know my sound absurd, but I took a week off from work and I just said, you know what? From now till Sunday, I'm going to write this exam. And every day till the day before the exam, I was on the virtual training program. After which, when I finished it, I took a day off. I went in for the exam, and in one sitting, I was able to pass my exams at a very high score of 715 over 800. So I'm sure that all of us can do the same thing. Yes, 750 over 800. It wasn't easy. Like writing the exam, I was tensed. My internet had to show me paper that particular day for no reason. I don't know what happened. I couldn't drink water. My throat was dry. I was very apprehensive. But God willing, we passed the exams. Now, I'm sure most of us have already gone into the VIA class Surface, design platform, and we already accessed our resources for the CPP module. Is there anybody that has not done that in this call at the moment?
I had difficulty doing that. I don't know.
Okay, is that who's speaking? Mr. Sherinde?
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel. Okay. What was the difficulty, sir?
I think it was about that time that they had to reset the system or something like that.
Okay.
And afterwards,
You've not gone in afterwards?
Yes.
Okay, I would advise you to probably send them a reminder so that they can check again for you. But what you can do, if you go in there, there's a forgot password section under where you log in. So you can use that forgot password to change your password.
Okay.
You can get, now if you go into that environment, you see that we have the 7 domains listed there in the environment, and each domain has different resources attached to those domains for CPP. You have the virtual study module itself, and you have a certification handbook, like a guide, and past questions that you can go through with the course. Now, my own approach was I went through the module in its entirety, each of the module, and after each module, I had the certification handbook that showed which particular areas they were going to bring the exam for, or they're going to set their questions for. Normally, I think every 4 or 3 years, ASIS sends a certification handbook that shows you where the main areas in the exams will come up. I just uploaded the handbook now. Let's check for the CPP. It is part of the resources that was sent to you in that particular program. So let's look at the CPP. I know my screen is clear. Let me maximize it if you're not seeing it. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
I can see it from my side.
Okay. So for the CPP, this is the section for CPP in the handbook that shows you everything we talked about, the eligibility requirements and CPP body of knowledge. But this is the key area. When you're going through your domain, you need to take this into cognizance. Like domain 1, for example, security principles and practices, they'll tell you plan, develop, implement, and manage organizational security program. That's the task you learn from this domain. And they're showing you 6 different knowledges you should look into. The 6th one is a new one that was not there in the old training program, and that's the enterprise security risk management. So as you go through that particular module, you're expected to look out for this particular 6 knowledge points, because that's where the questions they'll be asking you will come out from. So, for example, in domain 1, principle of planning, organization, and control, you focus on that particular area. You focus on security theory, techniques, and processes. You know, all the different knowledges, you focus on those areas. You can read through as a novel, like just go through the domain, but take cognizance of these key 6 areas as places that you will look into. Now, it's another document that is shared in the resources folder in that virtual training platform, and that's the review document, this one. Okay. As we can see, it's showing you it's for business principles and practices. That's the first task: develop and manage budget and financial controls to achieve fiscal responsibility. This particular document is for you to assess yourself. So you read through it, you see if you've been able to understand the principles of management, accounting, and control and audits. The first box is to tick if you've done it. The second box is to tick if you understand it. So You do not tick the second box till you're sure you've understood this particular line here. That's what I did in my own aspect. So for each of them, once I read through it, I tick. I read through it, I tick. Once I understand it, I close it out on this other box. Look, I'm done with it. Each module has a review document like this for each module. So it works hand in hand with the certification handbook. The handbook guides you on what you should look out for in the exam. The review document helps you check your level of preparedness for the exam. Now, once you're done with a particular module, my advice is you immediately go through the mini exam for that module. Each module has an exam attached to it. For each of the modules there, you will see that we have an exam attached to it for each of the modules, like a review quiz for each of the modules. And those quizzes are already in the virtual platform. So once you finish that module, you go back to the virtual platform, you open the quiz, and you test yourself to see how far you've gone. If for any reason you do not pass the quiz properly, my advice is to go through the module again, check your review document, and see the areas where you need to revisit. So in this particular second run, you're not going through the whole module from beginning. You're only going to those particular areas that you did not get properly in that particular module. Once you go through them and you're sure you've gotten them correctly, you proceed to the next module. So you start with module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4, 5, 6, and 7 in this same pattern. And after that, you can now go ahead and review the CPP practice exams. That's this one that is there. A link will also be provided for the updated one, but this one has about 700 and something questions with answers. So you can read through and check the answers. Now, the trick about ASIS examinations is most times all the answers they give to you are correct. All the answers they give to you in a question are correct. No one is wrong. But what they are looking for is the most correct answer. And that trick lies in the question itself. Now, when you're writing the exam, unfortunately, they don't allow you to take a screenshot of what the exam frame looks like, even the dummy questions you will answer before you start the exam, because once you're in the exam mode, you have 5 dummy questions or thereabouts. Some people say theirs is 10, mine was 5, that you answer. So you get a feel of how to answer the question. They have single selection answers, they have multiple selection answers, they have highlighting answers. So they test you on those different types of questions and answers so that you get used to it before they don't allow you to proceed to the main exam. But in that, you see that you have the option to highlight answers for review. So for example, you get a particular question and you're not sure of the answer, you can highlight or strike out by elimination the ones you feel are not correct, mark that particular question, and move on to the next question. Once you're done answering all the questions, you'll be allowed to now go back to review the ones that you've highlighted. And you can now take time to go through it and see which one is the correct answer. So like I tried to explain earlier on, the trick lies in the question. For example, now we have question 1 here, which of the following is not a legitimate purpose of an investigation for employee misconduct? Obviously, this question was taken from the investigations module, and they're saying A, to determine whether company rules have been violated, B, to ascertain whether company policies have been violated. C, to catalog information about employees that might be derogatory for future use. D, to determine if the state's laws have been violated. E, to determine if the federal laws have been violated. All these are the possible answers to which of the following is the legitimate purpose of an investigation for employee misconduct. And they say the correct answer is C. But if you look at it, you can investigate an employee based on the fact that company rules have been violated. You can investigate an employee based on the fact that maybe he has violated company policies. You can also investigate an employee to find out if he has violated state laws or federal laws. But they said the correct answer is to catalog information about employees that might be derogatory for future use. This particular answer now is not correct because it is not a purpose to investigate an employee, but it's more about creating policies. So the correct answer is C. Okay, let's do a test. Let's look at question 2. The investigation's best approach to questioning relies on the following. We have 5 answers now. Can any of us just select the correct answer from that particular question? If you are seeing the screen. There are no right or wrong answers there. Let's just to test and see if we understand what we're doing here. The key word here is best approach to questioning. It's not investigation's approach to questioning, but the best approach to questioning. When you see a question that has like the best approach or the most correct approach, you know that almost all the answers are from a correct pool, but one is what you're looking for. And they've said the investigation's best approach to questioning relies on. So the key word is best approach, but the factor you're looking at is relies. So which of these best approaches here would rely on the following? So anybody just pick an answer, please.
B.
B, okay. Okay, Ruben, you want to pick an answer?
I pick A.
Okay, Oga Shegun B. Usman?
B.
Yeah, B.
Okay. Oga Odum?
I'll go for B.
B, okay. Everybody is saying B, so B must be the correct answer. So let's check. The correct answer is B. You already passed CPP already. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, man.
You guys are laughing.
In class, we will do it in life.
No, like I said, it's actually very easy, but the pressure during the examination is what causes the problem. Okay, let's try the second one before we just go further. The second one is question 3. So the facts about drug users that may assist in recognizing problem areas during a drug investigation are set as follows. Indicate the one that is erroneous. So how do we analyze this particular question? Can anybody help me with it? To analyze the question, some of the facts about drug users that may assist in recognizing problem areas during a drug investigation are set forth as follows. Indicate the one that is erroneous. You must understand the question before you go for the answer.
So you're looking for only one wrong option here. It means the other ones are all correct.
Yes, sir. So if we interpret this question, how do we interpret this particular question they're asking now? Because this Wayo Igbo people is grammar they use and kill us in this exam. I shit you not. That is the trick they use. So we need to know our adverbs and tenses if you want to pass CPP. So obviously we are saying that this whole part is about drug users. We are seeing that we have investigation as another word, keyword in that particular question. We are seeing recognizing the problem in a drug investigation from drug users as the three key phrases there. But the action word there is may assist, not would assist, but may assist in recognizing a problem areas during a drug investigation. And they said one of them is erroneous. So look at the answers now. The only common characteristic is that drug abusers use drugs to a point where they feel they can no longer manage without its support. B, the adult abuser of drugs commonly has a history of social maladjustment. C, drug abuse is concentrated in but not confined to slum area of large cities. D, those who can afford to buy drugs without resorting to crime are less likely to be arrested for drug violations. E, chronic abuse of drugs is generally not considered a symptom of mental or emotional illness. Now, it will shock you that this question came out in my exam. This particular question came out in my exam and I failed it. I remember I failed.
It's like I failed it too.
Rather than just try first now. Don't join me. Yeah, I passed my own CPP. So don't join me. But I know I didn't pass this.
Okay.
Any ideas of the answer? Okay, let's look at it. The only common characteristic is that drug abusers use drugs to a point where they feel they can no longer manage without the support. Is this particular sentence a fact that you can see as a problem area during a drug investigation? That's what this question means. Is any of these particular answers a fact that you can see that is a problem area during a drug investigation when you're carrying out a drug investigation?
I think D.
D is the wrong one, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Daniel says D. Oh, sorry. Those who cannot afford to buy drugs without resorting to crime are less likely to be arrested for drug violations. Okay. Any country view to that? Any country view to Daniel's answer? Usman?
Yes, but I feel I will go for A.
A, okay. The only common characteristic is that drug abusers use drugs to a point where they feel they can no longer manage without the support. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have D, we have A. Anybody else? Somebody should help us.
Oh, D is not my final answer.
Okay, Daniel. The good thing is that you can always go back and review your answers.
Review, that
Yes,
is
even if you selected it, you can go back and review it. Because
okay, during the course of the exams.
Yes, you can.
Oh wow, okay.
So you can go back and review it if you've highlighted it, if you're not sure. But what I did was that I tried to avoid dwelling too much time on the particular question.
On any question, yes.
So like I said, you have the option to highlight and strike out. So when I see a question, I take the highlight button, I highlight the keywords or phrases in the question, look at it, look at the answers through, and I try to strike out the ones I feel are not the correct answers. If I now have 2 or 3 I'm not still sure of, I highlight that question, I move on to the next one. So I just kept on doing that till I now came back at the end of the questions to now start going through the ones, now taking time out to now really analyze the possible answers against the highlighted phrases, the keywords or phrases. Mr. Shaya, welcome to the session. You're actually on mute, sir, so we can't hear you, but welcome anyway. So we have A and D as a possible answer.
Okay, thank you very much
You're welcome, sir.
for having me.
No
I'm sorry
problem.
I'm a bit late. I was actually engaged elsewhere.
No
I had
problem, sir.
skipped my mouth until a colleague reminded me I had to abandon that one.
So
So
sorry
sad.
for that, sir. We'll still make a little review so you can catch up. So,
All right.
Oga Daniel, you said you're skipping D now. Which one do you want to take?
E.
Okay, we
Let
have
me go
A,
further.
D, and E. Chronic abuse of drugs is generally not considered a symptom of mental or emotional illness. Okay, and that's the answer. Not that your spirit is strong, oh. You see.
I just, it looks erroneous to me actually.
So, okay, let's look at it. The question says some facts about drug users that may assist in recognizing problem areas during a drug investigation are set forth as follows. The only common characteristic is that drug abusers use drugs to a point where they feel they can no longer manage without support. That is true. That's what we call addiction.
Yes.
You see? The second one, the adult abuser of drugs commonly has a history of social maladjustment.
Mhm.
If you go through your investigation, you see that's also true. Drug abuse is concentrated in, but not confined to slum area of large cities. If you check through reports, most of the drug abusers are actually from the wealthy areas. People have money to buy these drugs, abuse the drug more, but they are not addicts or junkies. The poor people are the ones that turn to junkies. Why? At that particular point, they are at the grade of answer A, where they feel they can no longer manage without the support. So start selling off their things, doing away with things till they get broke and become those crack addicts you see. So C is also one of the problem areas. D, those who can afford to buy drugs without resorting to crime are less likely to be arrested for drug violations. That means the wealthy ones, those who can afford to buy these drugs without actually doing the crime. But you won't be surprised that I actually chose D as the answer when I wrote the exam and I failed it. Because that sounds a bit not plausible. How can you say those who can afford to buy drugs without resorting to crime are less likely to be arrested for drug violations? Maybe in the US here, but I don't think so in Nigeria. But be that as it may, the most correct answer is chronic abuse of drugs is generally not considered a symptom of mental or emotional illness, which is true. In our country, we look at it as spiritual. They don't send them from village come, but it is not. So that's how
It's
tricky.
actually a symptom.
That's how tricky these questions are. Now, normally they'll say you should go and get the protection of assets bundle, because for CPP you need 7 books for each of the domains. You have POA, which we share to you guys. It's also in the resource folder of the training program. But those particular POAs will be outdated by is it June? By June this year, an updated version will be out. So I would recommend that for those of you that have money, you can still go out and purchase the POAs. They're a bit on the high side, but it's also good to have them for review purposes. I did not use the POA for this exam. All I use is all the resources that we have in that folder. The training module for each of the domains already fully packed. If you use the POA is more like a reference guide for you. But the training modules you have is more like, I can call it training module. It trains you for the exam. That's the difference. With the POA, you have references, you have case studies that you can go through. The training module has 1 or 2 case studies, but it's actually letting you know this is what and what you should do for this particular module. For investigation, this is how you carry out an investigation. For business principles.
So you actually did not use.
Sorry, sir.
You didn't use a POA before sitting for the exam?
No, sir. I did not open it one day.
Wonderful. You only need it in practice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'll say in practice, but I spent more time going through the training
Okay. True. Okay.
because it was more. If you go through the training module in entirety, you find that it's more like it's telling you a story. It progresses
Okay.
from the first topic to the next topic. You can't go to you can't jump in the training module to the last topic to read. It's not going to work. You get confused. You need to start from the
Okay.
first slide and follow it down till you get to the end, because as you're going, you're meeting up things you learned in the previous topic in the module.
Okay.
That's the difference between that and the POA. The POA has all the information you need. Go there and sort it out for yourself
I get confused.
and get confused. But with the training module, it takes you step by step. So all you need to do now is now look at it and say, okay, with the review sheet you have in your hand and what the handbook is telling you about that particular module, what are the key areas you should be looking at for the exam? This whole process is to pass the CPP exam. So we should be focusing on how to pass it and not on how to understand or cram investigation or business principles. I'm not saying we shouldn't know it, but to pass the exam, the trick is get your sheet ready, your review sheet ready, get your handbook ready to look at the particular areas that will be focused in the exam. And also, you need to note about the percentage. If we go to that handbook, sorry, on the system screen, you see that you have 22% for security principles and practice. That's domain 1. That's the weight of it. So they're telling you that 20% of the questions in the exam will come from domain 1. 15% will come from domain 2, business principles and practices. 10% and 9% will come from investigations. With this one now, you can now decide which domain you want to focus more on and which ones you should be more proficient in based on the weight of the questions in the examinations. So let's look at it from the top again. Domain 1, which is security principles and practices, has 20% weight in the exams. Domain 2 has 15% weight in the exam. Domain 3 has 9% weight in the exam. Domain 4 has 11% weight, that's personal security. Domain 5, physical security, has 16% weight. Domain 6 has 14% weight, that's information security. While Domain 7 has 13% with crisis management. Now, I asked a question once. I sent an email to certification and asked a question why they had different domain weights for the exams. And the reply I got was that for each of the examinations, be it CPP or APP, there's a particular idea or a particular purpose for that exam. CPP, which is Certified Protection Professional, is for security management. That is why most of the weight lies in business principles and security principles and practices. As you can see, there are 22% and 15%. The next one goes to crisis management. Okay, information security, then crisis management. Now, what they tried to explain was that as a security manager, these are the areas you should be looking at. Security principles and practices. How do you understand what security is? How do you practice security? Business principle and practice, that is the management aspect. What is your relationship to your, for example, if you're in security department, your relationship to the C-level top management? How do you relay that aspect to them? how do you do auditing? How do you do accounting? You know, how do you manage the resources you have in the security function in the particular organization you belong to. Look at information security. You know, information is the current currency now in business, as they keep on saying. He who has information has power. So how do you manage information where you are? Physical security, which is the basic thing we do in security. That's where you talk about protection and every other activity that carries on in physical security. Deterrence, delay, detection ends there. So that's why they distributed different weights of questions accordingly in all of them. So if you follow this particular path, I am very sure that within 1 week, 2, you can write your exam and pass very well. And let me add one more thing to it again. That experience is also a very important factor. But most of the questions you see, no matter how you've gone through the training manual or read the POA, you need that bottom down experience. They call them cheat questions. There are some questions that are there that have a high weight. You don't see those questions and answers in the training manual. You don't see them in POA, but they are there. Those ones are set to test your experience in accordance to the eligibility for writing this examination. So if you don't meet that eligibility requirement and you're going to write that exam, you are going to fail those particular questions. And if you fail those questions, I don't know how to do their marking system. I heard that that can also disqualify you in the exam because those questions have weights. So you must have experience. Okay, Mr. Daniel, you must say something.
You said those questions, are they marked, as in, is there something referring to them as differentiating them from other questions or what?
No, sir. They're like every other question. Like the way they do it, they just throw different questions. There's some questions that are dud in the exam. Some questions are there to waste your time.
Oh.
Those questions do not have a score attached to it.
Oh, wow. And you may end up highlighting and crossing and doing all the time, taking all your time.
They expect you to know those questions are actually wrong. They are dot, we call them dot questions.
Okay.
To test.
I think there's about 25. There's about 25 of those questions for CPP.
Yes, 25 thereabout for CPP. You're correct, sir. You see?
There are no scores attached to the questions. They
No
just throw them into the mix.
To give you wahala.
Okay.
And there's some other questions that have a high score, but those questions are there to check if you're lying about your eligibility. Because they expect that if you have 9 years security experience, which 3 of them have been in a responsible charge of security function, that is maybe an OC or an in-charge function, you should have been able to experience these particular issues firsthand.
Yeah.
So those questions are also there for you to answer.
Okay.
So let's take a rundown again. The approach is ensure you go through the CPP handbook to look at the key domain areas and tasks for each domain in the exam. You have your review and summary sheets to attest and check your preparedness on each domain as you go through it. Once you finish the domain, you go online to the training platform and take the CPP or the domain tests for that particular domain to check your level of knowledge and preparedness before you move to another domain. And when you've done that for all the 7 domains, you now go further to go through the CPP exam questions the PDF that is there that has about 700 and something questions for you to review and check for yourself to see how you can match with the knowledge you have. If you can do that and get 80%, me, I targeted 90% though, but if you can do that and get 80%, I'm sure you can score high in CPP exams. So at this point, I'd like to ask, are there any questions or suggestions that we can use? Because like it's a diet session, everybody has the right to contribute. Any questions or contributions?
So I'd like to say a few things here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. This is been enlightening for me, listening to all of these. Let me thank Mr. Bryan for all the hard work that has gone into these. And for those of you who know or do not know, Bryan and I are the main brain behind these. No, he's the main brain behind these. I'm just working with him on making it happen. So when he said he read the exams in 1 week, don't get carried away by that. The man put together all the slides that you saw here.
So he didn't tell us that part.
So I wanted to put that the man is responsible for putting all those slides together and making them putting them according to Nigeria context. So one of the things that they did, for instance, is where they put dollars there, they change it to Naira. Where they talked about McDonald's, they change it to stuff like Mr. Biggs and all that. So it is to his credit that we have what we have. So it's not out of place that he wrote these exams and he knows what he's talking about, because that's
Hello, you guys there? Hello. Okay.